My biggest sale on eBay this year has just come in.
But before I tell you about that, I built up a fair few DVDs and games to trade in. Let's head into CEX, see what we can get. There's a couple of PS1 games that have caught my eye. Alone in the Dark down there with the manual, £8. I've heard that's a really good game to play. And then at the top there, Final Fantasy Anthology, again with the manual. That was £35, but that is a classic way to trade CEX vouchers into cash when you sell it on eBay. So I picked up Alone in the Dark. As you'd expect, got the manual in there, nice and crisp with a few other leaflets as well. £8. Sells on eBay for more than that. Final Fantasy Anthology, £35. This is basically Final Fantasy 4 and Final Fantasy 5. With the manual in there, £35, about the going rate on eBay. But then as the guy was getting those out the cupboard, I noticed that this was there, Final Fantasy Origins. Thing is, it was labelled up as Final Fantasy 6 and only £28. Now this is a £35 game in CEX. Basically it's Final Fantasy 1 and it's Final Fantasy 2. It's got these little artistic inserts and the manual. This was a little result, right? Because they admitted that they'd mispriced it, but they honoured that 28 rather than 35. So that's Final Fantasy 1 and 2. They didn't make Final Fantasy 3 on PS1. That's 4 and 5. I've got 7, got 8, got 9. I had to buy it. Final Fantasy 6 is the last PS1 game I needed to complete the collection. Yes, it was £28, but it was in the shop. That is satisfying. Now sales have been pretty good on eBay recently, and it's just because we've actually been listing more. Regular listing as well, 3-4 items a day, and the shop's ticking over. I'm going to head back later on this afternoon and do a bit more listing, but as we're out and about, let's see what we can find in the charity shops. There's Spider-Man on the shelf there. I love picking up these old Spider-Men. This one's called Slingshot Blast Spider-Man. Not actually that old, from 2012. Looking up sold, maybe £7, something like that. Should have another little accessory with him. They've bundled in this small Spider-Man instead. Not really feeling this one. Doesn't have enough articulation in the arms. Nothing going on with the legs. We'll leave him for someone else. Nice pair of shoes down here. Look. Russell Bromley. They are a tenner. They've only just been put out. Pretty eye-catching low heels, aren't they? The thing is, I've looked them up on Google Lens and I can't find them, and I just don't know how I describe them. If I was going to list that on eBay, I want people to know what they are. I want people to find them. If you don't get that description or title right, they'll just sit there forever. Got a couple of old Monopolies up here. I've not had one of these in stock for ages. Usually what I do with these is I buy one, wait until it sells, and when it does sell, I pick up another. The thing is, we've got two here. £3.50 each. I'm thinking if I get both, if they aren't complete, hopefully together, I'll be able to make one set out of them. Have a look at these. Got a pair of Timberland 200G kiddies walking boots. Gore-Tex lined. They could do with a bit of a scrub up, but the bottoms look pretty good. These would be perfect for kids, right? No laces, it's all Velcro. No price on them, but if we can get them cheap enough, we'll get them. Nice selection of Funkos up here. All of them, £4 or £5, something like that. None of them with boxes though. Hunger Games characters, Star Wars, bit of Harry Potter. I just find without the boxes, they're a hard sell. Got some cool Disney ornaments. But look at this one. It's like a Pixel Tails off of Sonic. This is an Eagle Moss figure. £5. Now that one should come with a Sonic. And boxed together, they go for about £25. You won't make much more for £5 without the box, I don't think, though, for that. It's a nice Elsa figure, isn't it? Christmas coming up. So delicate, though. Tried to make it sound quite rare. 95 castings a day. This is number 88,000 and something, though. £15. Might be a bit in that on the run up to Christmas. I wouldn't feel confident posting that, making sure it gets there in one piece. Just thought I'd pop in here to show this impromptu Facebook Marketplace pickup I made. Check this out. I picked up this boxed Fortnite Edition Nintendo Switch and this Super Mario Bros. Game as well. They cost me £100. Now resale value, that sells for about 140, and that game goes for about 25 plus post. So after fees and postage, probably not the best deal in the world, but hear me out right. Firstly, thank you to everyone that commented on my last video. We found a Nintendo Switch out in the wild for a tenner, but it was broken. I managed to fix the screen. I ordered a Joy-Con stick off of eBay. That's all fixed and working now. So we've got a fully working Nintendo Switch for a tenner plus whatever it was for the Joy-Con stick, £2 or something like that. Our plan now is to list that up on eBay and try and sell it. And the going rate for a Switch in that condition without the box is about £125. Once you take into account eBay fees and postage, you're left over with about £100. And what we're going to do with that £100 is I'm going to give my son this box version of the console and that game as well. For me, reselling doesn't always have to be about making as much money as possible. It can be about upgrading what you've got. It can be about trading things. This is how I used to do it back in the day. I always remember going to the local game shops, taking my old games in, trading them in to get the latest game. Yes, I was probably losing money on it, but I was able to get something that I really wanted for something that I wasn't using anymore. What this means for my son is he's still got himself a Nintendo Switch. He's got a game for it for free. So once he's played that and given that a good go, he could take that down to CEX, use the store credit and find another game. Yes! Old school book, Wings of Doom.
Wings of Doom.
I love these, the old Ladybird books. Reselling potential, I don't think they're worth too much. But for a collection, absolutely.
Daddy.
What have you found?
Harry Potter dragon.
That is a Hungarian horntail dragon. Just looked it up. There's a little Harry Potter logo on there. Warner Brothers Studios. How much is he?
£3.50.
Sold on that. Maybe 12, something like that. He's cool, but probably not enough in it for us. Stick him back. Got some massive Jurassic Park dinosaurs here. Instantly I'm thinking storage, postage. It's going to take up a lot of room. £6, decent price, but he's just a bit big. You're desperate to find a Nerf gun, aren't you? Look in here, look. Past pigs. Still in the box, £1.50. And then in the glass cabinet they had this pair of Adidas original trainers. These were priced at 20, but the lady in there said that they'd been in that cabinet for months, so was happy to sell them for cheaper. I bought them for a £5. Haven't looked them up, don't know what they're worth, but I thought they looked pretty cool. You've got to be getting them shin pads for football. Surely, look, there's some old school like Total 90 shinnies. They're great, and they'd fit you as well. What do you reckon?
Yep.
Have a look at this. I am so tempted by it. A red PS3 Slim. Never seen a red one before, didn't know they existed. It's got the controller with it, and it's £60. This one doesn't look like it's got any cables with it though. Oh no, hang on, it says cables and box in the back. If that's boxed, I reckon that might be worth a go. A bit of damage on the controller there, so it doesn't look like it's been particularly well looked after. But it's rare, isn't it?
So how about that? A box slim red PS3 for £60. Sold on eBay anywhere up to 180. So on the face of it, it looks like a really good deal. But the condition of that controller was really putting me off, right? The people who are paying those top dollars, they're the collectors, and collectors are all about condition. If it's just a regular casual gamer, they'll go on and buy a bog standard black one for 40 to 50 quid. So with that in mind, the expectations of how much I could resell that for, I've lowered a fair bit. I did have a chat with the manager in there. I wanted to have a closer look. I wanted to have a look at the box. She brought the box out, and I'd say it was like acceptable condition, certainly not perfect. And you can kind of gauge that off just what the state of the controller was. Look, it just hadn't been looked after. I was umming and ahhing, right? And I decided to leave it. But then the thing is, I was walking around a couple of charity shops. I had a look at how much you could sell for just the console on its own. That seems to go for about £90. I then looked at what CEX were doing, and CEX was saying if you could have a console with just a bog standard third-party controller, they'd give you 80 credit. In my mind, right, I'm trying to now balance up the risk. I do really want to buy this. I do have a PlayStation 3 that I play on. It's backward compatible, but I don't have a box one, and this one is pretty rare. I want to add it to my collection, so I'm looking for any excuse to do that. So if I paid 60 quid, how much could I sell it all for parts if none of it was working? 50 to 60, I might get my money back. That right was enough for me to go back in and have another look. And you know what? I struck up a deal with the manager. I have now got the boxed red slim PS3. As you can see, box is acceptable. Massive creases on the top, big dent in the front. The graphics are all pretty good. Although you can see on the fold there, a lot of this exterior paper's coming off. But it does hold its shape, and if you put it up on the shelf, I think it would display pretty well. The console, I've plugged it in and luckily it works. I put some games in there, I've had a little trial run with it. Nothing wrong with that console whatsoever. This controller, as I feared though, completely broken. I've put it in and it does light up, but it's almost as if that button is permanently pushed in. You can see from the corner, that all lifts apart there. There's a huge gouge out of the plastic case in there, so if you push the joystick to the left, it keeps on going left and stays there too. That's absolutely had it. I got the bundle of games. They'll trade into CEX for a £5 voucher. No inserts in the box, but it's got the manual in there. Now when I walked back in the shop, I asked the lady if we could have another look at it. She took it out, she held the controller, and I just said I was a bit concerned that this wasn't going to work. Well, she held it up like this, started moving the buttons, and she was trying to convince me that it would work. She was saying, I can't see any reason why that just wouldn't work. Well, there's one. I then asked her had they tested it, and she said, well, it's got the power cord in there, it has been pack tested. But that doesn't actually mean that they've plugged it in and tried to play any games on it, right? So even then I was umming and ahhing, and she said, look, if I had it for 60 quid, I could take it back home, I could test it for them, and if it didn't work, I could bring it back for a full refund. Well, that's kind of told me there that they haven't tested this. Now, this is not something that I'd usually do, but I said, I'll give you 50 quid and I'll take it now. She then goes, well, I don't really know if I could do that. It's got a load of games with it. And then there was a bit of a silence. I handed her the controller back and I turned around to walk out the shop. And she goes, yeah, go on then. You can have it for 50 quid. As long as you don't bring it back. I went along with it, right? But if this didn't work at all, it is going straight back down that shop. We shook on it. The deal was done. Now, before anyone gets in the comments about haggling in charity shops, remember, they have sold me a broken, incomplete PlayStation 3. They have put bare minimum effort to test that this was working. In fact, all they've done is run it under the nose of the pack tester as they were testing other electrical items. Yeah, of course, I could sell that on eBay as console only, but they are getting the bulk of the money. 50 quid for that? I might be able to sell it for 90. After fees, what am I making? 20 quid? Spend 50 to make 20? Not the best business sense, is it? Now, I know this shop does regularly send stuff to eBay, so now I'm thinking, if they thought this was worth 60, why haven't they sent this to eBay? And I think it's because they haven't taken the effort or have the expertise to test it. I mean, I can tell it's not been tested. There's no HDMI cable in there. There's no way that has been connected to a TV. For them, they've got 50 quid for receiving a donation, getting it pack tested and putting it in the glass cabinet. I think that's a pretty fair deal.
Let's test out the new SKU system and pick some orders. First order, box T2. There they are. These aren't the Rust ones, these are by Dam. Made in Denmark, 1988 that was. Those three there, those are bundled for 20 quid. Any media, I put in G1. I was thinking games, games, G1. Starsky and Hutch DVD box set, that one's gone for £17.50. Wii Party there, that one's gone for 18. And then a disc-only version, GTA Vice City Stories, that's gone for 15. And then the final sale, it's a book. It's B1, you get it. Need to sort that out, because it's very hard to get to B1. Hey, look at this little walkway. And in here, I've got this Codex hardback Space Wolves book. That's gone for £9.
My biggest sale on eBay has just come in. I'll show you that in a bit. I'll show you what else is sold first. As part of my store reshuffle, I just dropped the price on a ton of stuff just to shift it on. I got a Ravensburger 1000-piece Disney Villains jigsaw there. That went for £8.50. That Equestria doll there, that went for 9 quid. And these Adidas Nemesis here, they went for 9 quid as well. I've got a couple of these Pikachu Build-A-Bears. This one sold for 11 quid. I think it's the batteries are on the last leg. These two lightsabers I bought at the boot sale a couple of weeks ago with that Predator box PC game. These clipped together to make like a Darth Maul style one. I sold for 15 quid. I picked up this Monopoly Family Guy set when I was out on holiday. Paid 2 quid for this one. That sold for £16.50. I picked up this Brita LMRS XL water filter when I was out with Connor. I paid 3 quid for this. Everything inside is brand new. It's got a brand new filter in it as well. That sold for 20. And I started listing up some bits from that Jumbo Trail last weekend. This is the first one to sell. I sold this Kindle 4th generation. That went for 20 quid. But this PSA graded Anthony Joshua card, this is the biggest sale I've had all year. Before I tell you how much, just a little bit of a story about it. I bought that car raw, ungraded, must have been 2.5 years ago. Paid £20 for it. But when I received it, right, it arrived in just a normal, just paper envelope. There was no protection, no top loader. Sometimes you find cards that just clamp between a bit of cardboard. There was none of that. It was just rattling around in this envelope. Thing is, when I saw this on eBay, right, the centering just looked perfect. And when I got it, even though it wasn't protected, I thought it still had a good chance of a decent grade. So I sent it off to PSA, come back as a 10. Really lucky to get that considering how it was delivered to me. Now this has been listed up for well over 2 years. And I find with sporting characters, it usually takes an event to put them back into the public eye to make them desirable again. Well, when I went through the grading process with this, Anthony Joshua was still world champion. He had tons of belts. And while this was graded, he then lost a couple of fights and lost his belts. Now, when I received this back from PSA as a 10, I thought, oh, great, it's a 10, but what am I going to do with it? No one's interested in Anthony Joshua anymore. Why is this sold now? I looked at sold listings, I put it on eBay, I priced it high anyway because there aren't many PSA 10s around, and I thought, you know what, there might be a bit of traction if there is this Tyson Fury fight happening. I had this listed up for 300 quid, and someone come in and offered me 200. I thought 200 quid on like a dead card that I just written off. Let's counter, 250, meet halfway. The guy left me hanging a bit, and a couple of hours later he countered me 225 quid. Thing is, if you look at sold listings, back in June, one of these has sold for 300 quid. So I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, 225 when maybe one sold for 300. Look, reality kicked in. 225 quid for a graded card that I'd written off. I'd be silly not to. This one's going global shipping over to America, and I am really happy with that sale.